As Israelis who are working on the next generation internet companies, is there a specific area where you think we should focus on being here far away from the market, or does it not make any difference? In other words, can the next Facebook, Google, Yahoo, MySpace, can they grow out of Israel?
It's amazing to me how many people are focused on different kinds of marketing and advertising technologies. I'm just curious, who here, does anybody here can hazard a guess as to the size of the U.S. advertising market? And by U.S. advertising market, I mean television, radio, outdoor billboards, internet. Anybody hazard a guess? It's $140 billion. Now, anybody hazard a guess as to how big the insurance market is in the U.S.? $1 trillion. So it's just interesting to me that we see an enormous number of companies presenting to us as venture capitalists, which are focused on doing things in the advertising space. Good things, interesting things, but they're all in that one area and space. And I find it, I guess what I would advise entrepreneurs is don't look where everybody else is focused, look where they're not focused if it's a big enough market. Paragon Lake, which we did not talk to, is a very interesting company focused on jewelry, being able to do customized jewelry online. Now, the jewelry market is a $60 billion market, so it's about half the size of the advertising market. But how many, other than Blue Nile, how many companies are in that space? Very, very few. And so there's a lot of opportunity in these spaces. Education, $200 billion market. You can look almost at a large different variety of industries that have real opportunities to be disintermediated that I think a lot of entrepreneurs should be looking at rather than just the advertising market.
Thank you. Any questions here?
Yeah, so the question was, when you're thinking about consumer startups, do you look to the U.S. as the main market or other markets, potentially China or India? It's a great question. I think some of it depends on, frankly, going back to the talent question, where you can hire talent. If you can hire great talent in China, then I think that's something that is very much worth thinking about. But I will also say, there are some areas where I think there's a clear difference, and there's some areas where it's less clear. So, for example, in mobile, there's no question that Europe is ahead of the U.S. and is probably the place that you would want to start focusing on from a marketing perspective. Even with the iPhone, although I think obviously the rules have changed somewhat in the U.S., even there, though they have, I still think that holds true. On some of the other kinds of social media in particular, that tends to be U.S.-centered and then spreads out. So you can start on either end, right? I think fundamentally, at least from my standpoint, comes down to where can you hire and where are you comfortable hiring the best talent that you can communicate with, that you can interact with, that you can help develop a great company with. And the question was, is there anything new in online shopping, and how is shopping.com dealing now with challenges? Just to be clear, I left, we sold shopping.com. We took the company public in 2004 and sold the company in 2005, actually 10 months later. So we were a public company for a very short period of time. eBay bought the company, and it's now held by eBay. I left the company right after the sale, so I'm not associated with shopping.com now. So e-commerce, again, going back to the issue of U.S. advertising market, 140 billion e-commerce market, 300 billion, something like that. So I don't think there's been a lot of innovation in e-commerce, certainly not as much as in the advertising space. And I think it's very ripe for innovation. I think that's a great area to focus on. Izhar alluded to a stealth company that we funded, which is very much in that mode. It's a very innovative idea around e-commerce. It's still very young, which is why we don't talk about it, but it's a very innovative idea. And I think, again, talking about areas to focus on, I think e-commerce is a great place to focus because I don't think there's been nearly as much innovation in that space, and I think it's right for that.
So actually you kind of brought me to my almost last question, which is, Dan, the next shopping.com. We are working very hard here in Israel to create many internet companies, and we here are strong believers that we can produce and generate a number of internet successes. But tell us, as an external person looking at Israel and internet companies coming out of Israel, are we eventually going to see a number of additional internet companies as big, as significant as ICQ, as shopping.com? Are we going to see this happening in Israel again?
I believe so. I think, one of the amazing things that Israel has, next to Silicon Valley, which is its own unique ecosystem, I think Israel has developed a really remarkable technology ecosystem of its own. And I think that inevitably will give rise to another great consumer company, internet company, high-tech company, and I hope it's the next one is even much bigger than shopping.com. That would be great, I think, for Israel and for the technology business in general.
To that we say amen. Dan, this is a special one. You actually mentioned Nahum Sharfman, and you and I actually wrote about him yesterday in Globes. Nahum brought you to shopping. Actually, the name was Deal Time. Nahum and his wife Nava were killed in a terrible accident in Greece a couple of months ago. And so I wanted to use the last maybe couple of minutes to ask you for a personal story or personal experience of yours about Nahum. You also came to Israel for a special occasion. The people of shopping.com are having a memorial service for Nahum Sharfman tomorrow, right?
Tomorrow evening.
And so that's as important as being here with us today. But tell us from your memories from Nahum.
He was he is my friend, my dear friend, and a very, very special guy, a very special Israeli, someone who had no ego in terms of, it was all about what can we do that's best for the company. He had a very strong ego, but he didn't have any need to take credit, even though he deserved enormous amounts of credit. So, I learned an enormous amount from him. He was really the reason that I joined shopping.com, he and Amir Ashkenazi, the other co-founder, and a very, very special man that will be missed by me and really everyone else at shopping.com. Really somebody that, as an Israeli, I think makes you very proud to be Israeli, and I'm very proud to be his friend. I was very proud to have been his friend.
With that, I would like to thank you and thank Dan. Thank you very much. Toda rabba.
Thanks.